Developed and published by Arbitrary Metric, Paratopic released back in 2018 and even won an award for excellence in audio at the 2019 Independent Games Festival Awards. So this game has critically acclaimed audio, but what else does it have? Well, it has pure nightmare fuel, a non-linear storyline, and inventive storytelling. This is Arbitrary Metric's 2018 horror game, Paratopic. And, well, you know, it's weird. But the first thing that anyone who plays this would see is the Steam page or the itch.io page, which are functionally identical. So let's just look at the Steam page instead, as I feel like it's where the majority of people are going to find this game. Yeah, that seems about right. The Steam page also highlights the most identifiable thing about Paratopic, the art style. It's very original PlayStation, like textures are blurred, edges have this very strong aliasing on them. Character models remind me more of Perfect Dark than they do of Red Dead Redemption 2, so yeah, this game is a retro 3D game and, you know, it looks pretty fucking weird, but I suppose that's the point. We start the game in a dark, dingy tunnel with a man standing next to us who begins to question us about undeclared goods. We also get introduced to the meat and potatoes of Paratopic, the dialogue system, which for the most part doesn't really matter in the slightest, as whatever option you pick here, the outcome is the same. But you might get some background information, but the end of the scene always plays out the same. There's no branching narrative here with big decisions, it's just a very tightly interwoven story, and that's fine. I guess the best way to proceed would be to give a rough summary of this story and continue from there. And well, this is where it gets hard. Paratopic doesn't really give you anything concrete. You have lots of ideas and way more questions, but only a few facts are given to you as the player. So I guess we could use those as the basis for the story moving forward. In Paratopic, you play as three protagonists, a birdwatcher, the assassin, and the courier. The story is not linear at all, and it jumps between these characters frequently, sometimes in the same scene. This makes the act of identifying which character you are very important, especially in constructing a timeline. The general gist of the narrative is that the courier is tasked with getting a box of VHS tapes over the border. Meanwhile, the assassin is hunting this courier and his boss too to stop this from happening. But why, you might be asking? They're just tapes, right? No, they do a lot of weird shit, and this is where it gets confusing. The bulk of Paratopic is a walking sim, but this time, unlike the likes of Edith Finch or Ethan Carter, you don't get audio logs or a narrator. It's just you, the player, and the environment created by the game devs. But this isn't to say that Paratopic doesn't give you a lot of clues, because it really does. Some are hidden objects, locations, etc. While some of these are presented through dialogue, most happen naturally for exploration of the game's many levels. But I do think before we even touch on this, we need to describe the events in the game as they happen in the order that we, the player, experience them in. The game starts out in the dingy tunnel I mentioned earlier, where the courier right now. We get questioned by what I can only expect is border control, working on the anonymous tip about the tapes that we are smuggling. Most likely from the assassin. We get the choice to warn him about the tapes, telling him not to watch them. The man wanders down the hallway to watch the tape. We jump cut to a roadside cafe. This time we're the assassin, staring out the window at what appears to be a corpse being eaten by a crow. So, you know, that's weird, but we get a phone call. Seems like it's our handler and also our partner? Again, unclear. And then here's the interesting part, the hike. Now, we'll come back to this later, but this is very important, and so is the camera sitting on the table. Another jump cut. This time we're playing as the smuggler again. We're in the same cafe as the assassin, but sometime before or perhaps after. We seem to also be talking to a handler or a boss. We get told the tapes are inside our apartment and that they have a key. And another jump cut, this time to the assassin standing up out of their seat. The assassin kicks down the door behind the counter. Title card, jump cut. The smuggler waits for an elevator. Jump cut to inside of an apartment building where the smuggler again. We head to our apartment, check the tapes, but our neighbour wants one. I chose to give her one. What does she want it for? Well, this. Yeah, tapes are kinda weird. And now we're driving, which is what you'll spend a good chunk of this game doing. This is the walking part of most walking sims, so you better enjoy it. But what is interesting about this is that it actually tells you something, location, and which characters you are. I mean, we're the smuggler right now, but that's a gun. Yeah, it changes at random on you. And interestingly enough, you loot the map 3 times, for each character maybe? Jump cut to one of the characters in the shop. It's unclear who, but we fill up the gas tank and we leave. And another jump cut, we're now on the side of the road and we're one of the characters, most likely the bird watcher, who simply just watches birds, I guess. So we start walking. This section has a neat mini game where you have to take photos of 6 individual birds. And would you guess it, we're driving again. This time a little bit further out of town. The buildings are more spread out now. We keep driving until we hit the countryside. And back to the birdwatcher again. This time we're in some destroyed industrial area. Cargo containers and security cameras watch us. A building sits on the hill. It ends with us seeing a strange figure in the distance who attacks us. And more driving. The objects again keep switching, but this time we're really in the middle of fucking nowhere. Grain silos lost them, it just keeps looping. And we're back at the gas station, but this time we must be another character from the first time we visited. We fill up and we leave. Hey, do you remember that gun? Well, we get to use it now. We shoot the smuggler's boss and watch a tape. And now we return to the first scene that we saw. We're back at the beginning of the game, folks. We get to see the aftermath of the border agent and he's watching the tapes. And well, yeah, that's what the tapes do to him. And now for the final scene. We play as the assassin again, but this time on the birdwatcher's tail. We find her body. The scene cuts to black as we make a call to the police. And I can imagine you're probably thinking, that was it, right? That was all the game has to offer? No, there's more. So, as it turns out, that was really only the surface of this game. It does go deeper. You may notice some weird cuts and stuff like that, but well, I basically decided to edit out any of the secrets that you would have found, as I believe most players wouldn't have noticed them on their first playthrough. So now I'm gonna try to arrange each character's story into a linear order and try to explain just what the fuck actually happened, like what are the tapes. There's not going to be via hints and clues present in the game, and this is going to be difficult, so stay with me. Let's start with the Smuggler. The start of the game is the end of the game, but let's work from the start of the game linearly in an order it makes sense. So basically the first scene must be him getting his job from his boss to transport the tapes. So the Smuggler gets his job, goes to his apartment, checks the tapes, gives tape to his neighbour, drives out of town, goes to a service station where the service station attendant informs him that he's being followed, gets caught at the border agent watches the tape, and thus the smuggler's timeline ends there. Alright, so for the assassin must follow the birdwatcher, report her body, take her camera as well. She must then report this to the police, and then heads back towards the city, and then stops at the same server that the smuggler stopped at. When she gets to the cafe within the city, she gets a new job. The job is to kill the smuggler's boss. She kills the boss, watches a tape, which may or may not place her into a time loop. The assassin most likely also called the police on the smuggler, hence the tip. And now for the birdwatcher. The birdwatcher drives out of the city, stumbles upon the leftovers of the power company, including an underground research bunker, more on that later, and is then killed by a shadow and left to be found later by the assassin. But when you lay it out like that, the story is really quick and simple, but there's actually a lot more to it. I wonder if anyone watching realized that the title has a meaning too. Paratopic itself has a meaning. So, paratopic. What is a paratopic? What is paratopic? Well, the narrative of this game is paratopic. Did you notice how it jumps around a lot? We do a lot of walking and driving. Well, we pretty much exclusively focus on paratopic spaces. We focus on the walking between an argument, the driving to a location, not the location itself. We focus on the less important events. If the game was to explore a more utopic narrative, we would be experiencing the power company, but we aren't. We're exploring the events that take place after the utopic spaces ended, or in between utopic spaces. It's basically like a post-post epilogue. And this is what I mean by a different narrative. The beauty of Paratopic isn't in its ability to have unnerving visuals or excellent sound design. It's in the hints and clues that the player may or may not find and how they fit into the larger story, the utopic story. So what is this utopic story? Well, it's the power company. Their experiment, the tapes, the creature that seemingly appears to be attracted to the tapes and people who've been around them. Throughout the game, we get all these little hints about the power company. I would say the most meaningful comes from the underground bunker that the birdwatcher finds along their walk. We learnt the power company is working towards the rather vague goal of the future. The phrase "to fight for a better tomorrow" is said, and the Doctor mentions sacrifices. But what I think is the most important clue in this bunker lab room thing is the orb. I'll be referring to this orb as the cage from here on out. Why, you might be asking? Well, look at it. Something came out of it. Was this the accident that the service station attendant spoke of? Probably. It's unclear, but let's assume it is. But talking about the gas station attendant, he's the second most relevant treasure trove of secrets this game has to offer. On both visits there, we the player learn quite a bit about this world. He talks about pyramids that, in his humble opinion, are alien hives. We do see these too in the game, I think so at least. But anyway, he talks about the power company and the accident. First off, he mentions the local museum. People bring in relics from the power company, and I quote, "They do weird stuff sometimes." The clerk, when prompted, gives us more information. The accident happened about 14 years ago, and they were the biggest employer in the state. And he also believes that the power plant was given to the aliens, which might not be wrong, so let's lay the facts out. We have a cage, which something is broken out of, an accident which must be connected to the cage, and the tapes, which must also be connected. So did the creature break out of the cage? I assume so. I assume the tapes are an artifact from the accident. Think along the lines of the Stalker games. Objects that were given some kind of power after an event. And they do have a lot of power, like we see them alter the flow of time at one point. I assume that the tapes are recordings of the creature, or maybe the accident itself. We do see cameras around the power company, so maybe it's these cameras that record it. Maybe it's snuff porn of the birdwatch getting killed. Maybe it's presented in video form. Whatever it is, the demon, alien, shadow fiend is attracted to it. It might even feed off of it, and that's really all we know about the story of Paratopic. Paratopic, it lures you in with these retro 3D visuals, but it really makes you stay for the story. The lack of it anyway. I think calling this game a walking sim is a little incorrect. It's more like a mystery game where you're missing puzzle pieces. And you can't solve it, but you can try. And this is what I kind of wanted to get across with this video. Paratopic doesn't have a definite answer. It's kind of like Twin Peaks in that way, if you've watched it. You can search all you want, but you'll never know. And that's really what makes discussions about media like this so entertaining. You can listen to so many other people talk and you'll still disagree on most of it. So maybe for you it's a strained representation of a post-capitalist America where the major power company failed. Or maybe it's about postmodernist art, or if you really want to get in depth, it's about linear and non-linear media. Or maybe it's just a creepy looking game with a vague story. Whatever you believe, you aren't wrong, you're probably not right either, but that's really what an interpretation is at its core. It wouldn't surprise me if some people watching this didn't even think about the things I just said. And for them it was about something entirely different. If Arbitrary Metric wanted you to walk away from this game with a particular idea, they would have spelt it out a lot clearer, and that obviously wasn't the case. As I wrote the script, edited and provided voiceover for this video, I realised this wasn't really a plot summary anymore. It morphed into an analysis of something. But if I wanted you, the viewer, to take anything away from this video, it's that art is very, very subjective. No one has the same interpretation of anything, especially in the realm of artistic mediums. Hell, Arbitrary Metric themselves might have had a different interpretation than what you had, and who's to say who's right there, because art is an emotionally driven medium, which means that it is different for everyone. And with that, I think I'm done here. I had some more videos in the works, no idea when they'll be done, but they're similar in style to this, so if you want to hear about how Ken Lynch 2 Dog Days had some good ideas about visual design, then subscribe. It's an interesting video to say the least. But yeah, thanks for watching, hopefully I'll see you next video, if not, have a good one.